Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this Friday morning. Could today be the day where we get some big news around Sir Jim Ratcliffe's acquisition of 25% of Manchester United from the Glazers? We'll have to wait and see on that, because what we're talking about this morning is a centre-back being targeted by Manchester United that is potentially a recommendation from Paul Mitchell. What does that mean for Eric Ten Hag if we are moving targets based on a director of football that's not here yet but may well already be guiding United? We'll talk about who Castello LUKEBA is, or Castello Jr. as they call him, and how an interesting profile player he would be. Certainly a good player, I just don't know how easy it would be to do that deal. We're also going to be talking about Casemiro's future, some interesting stuff going on there as well. And also I do want to talk about something that is nagging away at me and might be nagging away at you. There is a very, very real conversation to be had about the danger Eric Ten Hag is in. I'm noticing more and more little hints and rumours around Eric Ten Hag's future and how safe it is under Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And I think we need to have that conversation, because only yesterday, Mark Ogden, who we've had on the channel from ESPN, gave his opinion on Eric Ten Hag. And, you listen to it and you go, this is a problem if Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't actually rate him. So we'll talk about that as well. Lots to get into on the United Stand this morning. I hope you're doing well. Don't forget, Friday night show tonight. But we'll be live at 7 o'clock tonight, because I'm going to do the England watch along at 7:45 on That's Football. So it'll be 7 o'clock, normal Friday night show tonight at an hour early. Hello from Korea, Mark. Loved your podcast. Keep up the great work, says Taco. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And don't forget the Christmas show on December the 11th. We've still got a few tickets left. I think there's about 80 left now. So they're going fast. Links in the live chat and in the video description. Cracking night. So many things planned. And a lot of these Christmas jumpers designs that you can see below, which you can get your hands on. We ship them worldwide. We'll be giving some of those out on the night. Santa Bridge. Anyway, Paul Smith says the Vegas GP is a joke. Not that channel. This is the United Stand, not the F1 stand. Right, let's get straight into this. So Bild this morning are reporting that Manchester United have been scouting Castello LUKEBA, who is a French centre-back that's playing for RB Leipzig. So who is he? What's he all about? And why would Manchester United be looking at him? Well, first of all, I've got to say two things here. I've never heard United be linked to this player at all. He signed from Lyon to Leipzig in the summer for about 30 million quid. I've never heard United be linked to him at all. We've heard about Disasi, we heard about Kim Min-jae, and we heard about Todibo. So this scouting of this player, which I'm sure United are doing, I never doubt scout reports. I never doubted that we were scouting the Benfica holding midfielder at the start of the week. We scout a lot of players, so I believe we are scouting him. Why has his name been added to the list? And my first observation on this is that Paul Mitchell has been director of football for Monaco in France last year, which is where Lyon play, and he's also formerly of Leipzig. So French player goes from Lyon to Leipzig and United are suddenly scouting him. I don't think it's much of a leap to think Paul Mitchell. So first of all, if there is an intention from United to really look at this guy, which looks like there is, then I wouldn't be surprised if it's something to do with Paul Mitchell, because we've never been linked with him before. And as I said, I'm convinced that Paul Mitchell will be our next director of football. Absolutely convinced. I'm not going to go and say it's done deal or anything like that, but from the things I've heard and from what I'm seeing, Paul Mitchell, I just think I'd be saying 90%. And I know even this morning they're saying Dougie Friedman's got a good chance and there are other people in the race. But if this is a race, it's a little bit like a Man City title race, and Paul Mitchell's Man City, I think it's his job. I really do. I think it's his job. And I think logically this is probably why we're being linked to players like this as well. So what is LUKEBA all about? Well, he's 20 years of age. I think he's just starting to break into the French setup. But the interesting thing about him is that he's left-footed. In fact, the Leipzig coach has said he can probably play at left-back. He's quick, as you would expect, for a modern centre-back. Very good on the ball, very good passing range. Questionable physicality and aerial dominance. I mean, he's only 20 years of age. But certainly, Leipzig have this amazing tendency to pick up good young French centre-backs. They've had Upamecano, they've had Konate, they've got Simakan at the moment, who's 23, and obviously now they've got LUKEBA. So, but he's left-footed. So this got me thinking, because we're obsessed with getting a right-footed centre-back at the moment, aren't we? And actually, Martinez has been injured for 6 months. And when Martinez gets injured, we have to play Luke Shaw there if we want a left-sided centre-back. So it's interesting. I'm quite interested about this because I do think we need a left-sided centre-back. Harry Maguire is a right-footed player who can play left. Same with Lindelof. Same with Johnny Evans. In fact, I don't know whether Johnny Evans is right-footed. I've never really focused on that. Maybe Johnny Evans is left-footed. I think he's right-footed, but ultimately he's not a player for the future. So the interesting thing about LUKEBA of Leipzig is that he's a left-footed centre-back. And I do think United need a left-footed centre-back and a right-footed centre-back. That might not be under consideration amongst the fan base, but Martinez can't play every single game. And if he's injured, like now, we don't have a left-footed centre-back. And if he needs rotation, we don't have a left-footed centre-back. So I think this type of player is really interesting. However, my take on this, and I don't know whether any of you even know much about this player, this is my take on this. You might agree, you might not agree. I think we're scouting LUKEBA. I think that this is a recommendation from Paul Mitchell. And, I do believe that. I don't think we're going to sign him. I think this is a recommendation based on, look at how that happened. Lyon to Leipzig, he will be a really good centre-back over the next couple of years in European football. That's the sort of deal we should be doing. I think that's the root of this story. I think this is Paul Mitchell going, look, that's the sort of signing you should be doing. He's at Lyon last year. You've never even had him on your radar. He's now going to play for Leipzig, and probably in 1 or 2 years, he'll go for 70, 80 million to Man City or Liverpool or Real Madrid. And you need to be picking these players up from the French league before they go to Germany or anywhere else. And I think that's the truth behind this story, because logically, when you think about it, I think it is a player that United are interested in, but he's only been at Leipzig for 3 months. He moved in the summer for, I think it was 25, 30 million quid. We're not getting him. Certainly not in January. And if you want him in the summer, they're going to want 50, 60 million for him. So I think it's a signing that we've missed the boat on, but I think it's a recommendation probably from Paul Mitchell saying, look, these are the signings you need to be looking at. For too long, United are paying stupid wages and stupid transfer prices. There's plenty of good players out there that you can go and get that end up at Leicester or Leipzig or Dortmund. And you look at them there and you end up paying 70, 80 million. You need to be looking at them a step before. And again, it's not rocket science. It's an open goal. I mean, I'm not going to give Sir Jim Radcliffe credit for changing the CEO and the director of football and the transfer strategy, because you could do it. You could do it. Curtis's gran could do it. If she wasn't dead, she could do it. But the reality is, it's an in-joke on FIFA, don't worry. But you could do it. If I said to you, you're in charge of Man United now, you'd get a new CEO, a new director of football, and you'd change the transfer strategy by stepping back a day, and by stepping back a phase, and that's what would happen. Merry November, everyone. Wearing my Christmas jumper, says breaking news. And hi, Mark, flying to New York today. Things to do, says Liam. Great, what you doing? What are you doing? Curtis Gran is my nemesis. She haunts me. So if you don't know the joke, you don't know the joke. But seriously, I do think that this is just an example of how Manchester United just need to take their transfer strategy back a step. So you look at Anthony at Ajax, and instead of buying him from Ajax for 80 million euros, you pick him up from Brazil. Instead of spending, if you look at Onana, instead of buying him from Inter Milan for £50 million, you get him from Ajax for cheaper. I don't know what Ajax got for him from Inter Milan either, but this is just better scouting. This is just better recruitment, and this is how Manchester United need to operate now. And also wages. Wages will be cheaper, because when you go from Leipzig to Man United, we're going to be going, come to United, 150 grand a week. Whereas if you take him from Lyon, you probably get him for 70 grand a week. So it works two ways: cheaper wages, cheaper transfer fee. And I think that is basically what this story is all about, to be honest with you. I don't think we'll end up getting him, but I don't know what money's going to be available in the summer. Maybe there's just going to be a massive... Maybe there's going to be a massive influx of cash in the summer. We can always dream, but I do think it's got Paul Mitchell's handprints on it, and I do think that this is the sort of signing that Manchester United need to be looking at, but probably a step back, probably from Lyon instead of from Leipzig because he's just gone to Leipzig. And Manchester United should not be learning transfer policy from RB Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund and Leicester City and Brighton. We shouldn't be doing that. It's an embarrassment on the name of Manchester United that we've got to learn how to do transfers from RB Leipzig. And with all due respect, Leipzig have done a great job, but how do Man United not know about this? Because it's been run badly for a very long time. Also, just before I talk about this Ten Hag news, a little bit of news coming out in relation to, well, I'll talk about the Dougie Friedman thing in a minute, but there was also a little bit coming out yesterday that you may have seen from Ben Jacobs about Casemiro. Casemiro does not want to leave Manchester United for Saudi Arabia in January. So that came out yesterday from Ben Jacobs, that Casemiro does not want to leave Manchester United in January and effectively will stay until at least the end of the season. I think this is good news. I think this is good news because I don't think Casemiro and Varane are playing for Man United this time next season. But if you let them both go in January, how do you replace them in January? I mean, January is very chaotic. There's a lot of games going on. There's no pre-season to get players in to adapt. And also, as we know, replacing a Casemiro or a Varane in January limits what you can do. You overpay for... I think January can be typified like this. You either pay stupid money for your plan A or you overpay for plan B, C, D, and E. So I think that these things need to happen in the summer, and I'll talk about the summer in a minute because I think bigger things than Casemiro and Varane could be changed in the summer. I think Ten Hag could be changed in the summer, and I'll tell you why in a moment. But certainly that is good news around Casemiro, and probably logical news as well. I don't think we will see any major change around that until the summer, but I'd be very happy if Casemiro stays. We can only add quantity in January rather than quality, says A1. That's good to hear, says Susan. We need a CDM, especially with his experience. And if Sir Jim gets rid of Ten Hag, I'd want someone like Alonso. I know he's ex-Liverpool, so probably wouldn't happen, but he's impressed me with his Leverkusen team. Or we keep hearing about the guy from Sporting Lisbon. I think his surname begins with an A. I can't remember what his name is now. If Nice is willing to be a feeder club, then learning from Leipzig isn't a bad thing, says Top. Yeah, well, look, I think we'll definitely get Todibo. I said this a couple of weeks ago. He will sign in a month beginning with J. It'll be January, June or July. We will get Todibo. We should get Todibo. He was a player that Ten Hag wanted in the summer, and that link up with Nice makes it very doable. So we should be getting to Todibo, but I think there is a case for a left-sided centre-back as well. Why not go for Premier League like Braithwaite at Everton, says Cameron? Very expensive, probably. Not a bad idea, but very expensive. And Asif says, I'm happy to hear us linked to players like this than star names or youngsters everyone wants. Well, Asif, before I move on, that's exactly why I mentioned Paul Mitchell. I'm absolutely convinced he's getting the job. And also, I think this sort of story, scouting someone like a LUKEBA, would be very much in keeping with Paul Mitchell, who, when you look at where he bought players in from, I think Son to Spurs was from Leverkusen, I think. Mane was RB Salzburg to Southampton. A lot of players he acquired when he was at Leipzig were from the French league. So Paul Mitchell's got a good knowledge of the French league and the German league. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Would you accept any loan deals, Mark, says Taco? Only if there's a future in it. I don't mind a loan deal as long as there's a future in it. I mean, I quite liked the Sabitzer one. It didn't work out, but if Sabitzer had come in and done well, you make it a permanent deal. So there's nothing wrong with that. Pevan says, is there any reason why our team is imbalanced because we have lost our best left-footed players? I think we could just do with another one. I think we could just do with another left-sided player, if I'm being completely honest. Just as well, something just to bring in as well. This is coming in from just in general. There is a small chance that Sir Jim Radcliffe's announcement could be done today, but the real feeling is that it will be next week. There'll be obviously after that there'll be a gap where the club has to be registered with the Premier League and there's a protocol that needs to go through. So there is a slim chance today well, I wouldn't say slim chance. There is a chance that we get breaking news today about this Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal, but the feeling is that it will be next week. On from that, Sky have said that it's very unlikely that Manchester United will spend big in January, with Sir David Brailsford carrying out an audit of club operations and transfer business. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos are aiming to have a big say in how United are run before the transfer window opens in January, with Brailsford having a key role in the process. But it's unlikely they will spend in January, which, you know, is probably not the news that we want, but I think it's the news we expected. And there is expected to be quite a lot of changes on Manchester United. Interestingly, the CEO of Nice has been speaking about Jean-Claude Blanc. I mean, the CEO of Nice basically works for Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and he's speaking about the prospective new CEO of Manchester United, Blanc. He says he's a bit like the Lionel Messi of sports business. It's not only a question of expertise, but of interpersonal skills. He brings vision, his network, his calm, his experience. So there we go. The CEO of Nice, which is owned by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, bigging up Jean-Claude Blanc, who could be the next CEO of Manchester United. In fact, Sky Cabe on Sky yesterday was saying a lot of people in the industry speak very, very, very highly of him. So look, it's somebody with a good reputation, which is very interesting. Alex Crook on TalkSport has said that Crystal Palace sporting director Dougie Freedman is a genuine contender to join Man United's new look recruitment team. Other names also under consideration, but he's saying there could be more than one appointment. So look, that I don't think anybody has a problem with that. You know, I don't think anybody has a problem with that. I mean, it's a big job. It's Manchester United. We are playing catch-up for a decade. I think that if Manchester United give Paul Mitchell the job and Dougie Freedman the job, I mean, that's quite interesting as long as Paul Mitchell's above him. I don't think Dougie Freedman can be Man United's director of football, but if he's a guy with potential, working under someone like Paul Mitchell, I wouldn't say no to that. I wouldn't say no to that at all. I mean, as I say, Andrea Berta at Atletico Madrid would be very, very welcome as well. But, I mean, look, I think the most important thing is that you get the right director of football. If you want to bring somebody in underneath him, that's absolutely fine. But it can't be Dougie Freedman on his own. That job is just too big for him. You can't go from Crystal Palace doing a good job to Manchester United. Not at all. So no, I don't see that happening. I absolutely think it will be Paul Mitchell. But I do want to just talk as well about Erik Ten Hag. I don't know whether anybody saw this yesterday, or heard this yesterday. Hello, Mark. Because of our recent history of overpaying for underperforming players, every club now asks for more than the player's market value, says CD. And that's why you need to operate in a different place. If you go knocking on the door of Ajax or Borussia Dortmund, they'll say, we want 80 million, and the player will say, we want 200 grand a week. If you take that a step before they go to people like Dortmund or Ajax and knock on the door of a Lyon or a Sao Paulo, you'll get a better deal. It's just better. It's just better recruitment. Man United are buying players too late. Man United need to get the players before they go to Leipzig or before they go to Dortmund or before they go to Ajax. That's how they'll save the money. That's how we need to recruit better. Our recruitment over the last decade is lazy. We let everybody else do the work and then we go, they're a good player, let's buy them. And quite rightly, those clubs that do all the work go, you know what, you can pay us for it. You can give us 75 million for Sancho. You can give us 80 million euros for Anthony. And those clubs are well within their rights to rinse Man United. But we need to recruit before they do. And we can do with better recruitment. And I think that is where Man United need to look at things 100%. But look, this is what Mark Ogden said yesterday when he was on ESPN's podcast. Big shout out to Pip Tomlinson who sent me this, and I've listened to it. So basically, this is what he said. Mark Ogden of ESPN, he's been on the United Stand before, a long-standing journalist who works around Manchester United and has done for many years. He basically said, I don't think Erik Ten Hag is a United manager. He doesn't have the charisma, personality, and he isn't getting the results. And he also went on to say that it's probably something that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will look at. He'll give him the season because there's no point changing anything until the summer anyway. But he feels that there's a possibility that Sir Jim Ratcliffe will look at changing the manager in the summer. Now, I don't want this to happen. I really don't want this to happen, but I'm also not really about, I'll express my opinion, but I'm not really about pushing an agenda onto an audience because it doesn't work. And we've been doing this for years and it doesn't work. I may have tried it in the past, in the early days. I don't remember, but it doesn't work. That's not how you do things. You express your opinion and you respect the opinions of others as long as they're not abusive and illegal or anything like that. Growing noise in the UK over the last month. We've seen certain media outlets trying to push Ten Hag out. Man United fans won't have it. Ten Hag retains the support of this fan base, the vast support of this fan base. But there are people in the media who work around Manchester United and don't work around Manchester United that don't feel that Erik Ten Hag is the right man for the job. That's never a good starting point. When a new owner comes in, then it's never a good starting point. Now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is not a new owner of Manchester United. Let's just lay this down. He is not a new owner of Man United, and this is why I and many other people are awaiting the detail. Somebody said to me a couple of days ago on the live chat, why are you so obsessed with the detail? I'm obsessed with the detail because I'm interested in the detail, because I understand parts of how Manchester United run. Manchester United has basically the Glazers have a very intricate situation at Man United that stops anybody toppling them or moving them out of the football club. Effectively, those Class A shares that the shareholders have are powerless, and the Class B shares are the power of Man United. And this is all linked into places like the Cayman Islands and all sorts of stuff. So this is a very intricate business that prevents anybody toppling the Glazers. They have all the power and they can't be toppled. And if someone tries to topple them on the board, they have all the voting rights to remove people from the board and put people on who they want to be there. So United is under the grip of the Glazers and has been for many, many years. And whether you understand business or you don't understand business, basically, there's nothing anybody can do to get the Glazers out if they don't want to go, because they've got it all tied up. They can't be forced out by people aggressively buying shares. They own the majority of the shares and they absolutely monopolise the majority of the powerful shares. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming into the club doesn't own the club. He's not a new owner. He has some sort of football control. We don't know how much. The Glazers are in control of this situation. They took Sir Jim from 100 to 70 to 50 to 25%. They're in control. Now, if the Glazers want to go in 2026, they will go. And people will think, well, Sir Jim's in control. But he's not. That's because the Glazers want to go, and this is a staged exit. The reason I want the detail is because I know one thing. The Glazers are in control. What is their plan? Have they got an exit plan, in which case maybe Sir Jim will take control, or have they got a longer term plan where they're not going to leave? And that's why I want the detail, because they are in control. And the way that club is set up, nobody's going to come in and topple them unless they want to move on. So that's why I want the detail there. But obviously, they've done some sort of deal with Sir Jim where he has a big say on the footballing side. And I think coming into this football club, Erik Ten Hag is in danger, because if I'm coming in or you're coming in, the club's in a bad situation. There's already levels of dissent towards Erik Ten Hag, possibly in the dressing room, although that could be overstated, but certainly in the media and maybe within the club itself. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe, it's really going to be about what his impression is. He hasn't appointed... It's very much the same as Jadon Sancho. I was thinking this before I went live. This situation is very similar to Jadon Sancho. What irony, Ogden talking about charisma when he is the one with the least charisma. Look in the mirror and work on your charisma, Ogden, says Ran. Okay. I've got no problem. I mean, I'll tell you the similarity with Sancho and Ten Hag's job in a moment, but I've got no problem with what Mark Ogden said. If he doesn't think Erik Ten Hag is a Man United manager, if he doesn't think that he's got the charisma or he's right, he's not the only one saying that. I don't agree with it, but, you know, it's a debate point at the moment. I have to admit that. Sir Jim could be a glorified director of football, says Naru. Well, look, I always like analogies. Let me explain Ten Hag's danger comparable to the Sancho situation. Jadon Sancho, £75 million player, 300 grand a week. Erik Ten Hag never fancied him. And the reason Ten Hag didn't fancy him is because he didn't buy him. And people were going, why isn't Ten Hag picking Jadon Sancho? And the honest answer is because Jadon Sancho was inherited by Ten Hag. He didn't spend £75 million on him, and he didn't give him a 300 grand a week contract. So Ten Hag can say, look, I know he's a player at Man United, and I will give him a chance, but he's not really, I would never have bought him. He's not my type of player or personality or whatever. So I don't want to really use him. Well, now flip that around to Sir Jim Ratcliffe when he comes in and Ten Hag's there, and we're going, you've got to give him a chance. You've got to give him a chance. And then Sir Jim goes, but I didn't pick him. He's not the manager I would want. He's good. I like him. I respect him, but he's not the manager I would want. And I'm pumping in billions into this club. I want the people I want. And that's the danger. All this talk about bad results, lack of charisma, not a Man United manager, job's too big for him, all that stuff is actually not really that important. It's actually going to be about Sir Jim Ratcliffe coming into the club and what he thinks about the manager. Now, if he comes in and he's a big fan of Ten Hag, absolutely fine. But if he comes in with his own ideas and goes, I like Ten Hag, but he's not the manager I want, then he's walking on broken glass, isn't he? He's walking on thin ice. He's walking on something. So, look, yeah, I do worry about Ten Hag. I do worry about Ten Hag because logically, whenever there's a change in the boardroom, the manager can be a target. It happens all the time when people invest in a company or when they take over a company. They want to bring their own people in. They want to bring new ideas in. In defence of Ten Hag, I would say, look, I want Ten Hag to stay. I don't think he's been given a fair crack of the whip. And defence of Ten Hag, I think that if I was Sir Jim, I don't think Ten Hag's been given the opportunity to do the job yet. So you're almost having a new manager anyway, because hopefully you're actually going to give him the structure to succeed like he did at Ajax. So I think there's a lot of potential for this relationship between Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ten Hag, and I hope that we see that. But on the other hand, if this season goes badly, I wouldn't be surprised if they did make a change in the summer, because he's up against, he's got a time limit, and can he afford to waste time on something he's not 100% sure about? I certainly think it will be interesting to see how it pans out, and it's not a great situation. I mean, I wish we were in a scenario where everybody was behind Erik Ten Hag, but as we know, that's not the case. It's certainly not the case in the wider media. It is the case in the fan base. I certainly think Sir Jim Ratcliffe is never going to walk into the club and sack Erik Ten Hag in January, because that would be criminal for his reputation. Like, he has to be very careful about his PR. He's working with the Glazers, and everybody around him will be saying, you've got to be really careful, Jim. You're working with the Glazers. The fans can't stand the Glazers, and you're working with them like your best mates. You are business partners. That's what you are. So Jim is a business partner with the Glazers. So that's a very delicate position to be in, because the fans don't like the Glazers. What you cannot do in your first 6 months is do controversial things that you want to do that are going to alienate you from the fan base. And I think if Sir Jim walked into the club and sacked Ten Hag, there might be some people that agree with it, but the vast majority would go, who is this? Oh, it's another Glazer. I think he's got to wait until the summer before he does something like that. Nick P says, imagine if you're a top English manager and you go to Spain and manage, but the press don't like your charisma when you're trying to speak a second language, says Nick. Well, you know what I think about all this bias, British bias, etc. I've said my piece on that. For me, it's Ten Hag or nothing, says Anarud. And Rob says he's walking on the whiff of bullshit. And Jack says Ten Hag is too authoritative. Players won't warm to him and play for him, says Jack. What they did at Ajax. I mean, I don't like that explanation, Jack, to be honest with you. Does that not say more about the Manchester United squad? Pep Guardiola is authoritarian. If you know anything about Pep Guardiola, or you've spoken to any players that have played for him, which I have, Pep is very authoritarian. We've seen it on the pitch. Erling Haaland can score 2 goals and he'll walk up to him on the cameras and tell him off because he's done something that he wasn't happy with. Pep Guardiola is a perfectionist, an obsessive, and an authority. He is. So I don't like the Ten Hag's too authoritative. Van Gaal was like a teacher. Mourinho was too strict. The problem with Man United is we've had loads of managers over the last 10 years and the players don't deliver. So I do not sit here and say Ten Hag is too strict. The players are too weak, as we see time and time again. You can't replace a manager because he's too strict with the players. Sir Alex Ferguson was ridiculously strict. Sir Alex Ferguson had moles all around Manchester in pubs, landlords telling him if a player went in. I mean, how strict is that? So, yes, we do need an authoritative manager, and Erik Ten Hag can be that. It's about having the right structure around him. We've got a very soft squad, says Mo, and I agree. At least Pep, At least Pep gets result. Ten Hag is strict and gets nothing out of it, says Happy. But you're just a recency fan, and you're not very happy. Ten Hag last year took us from worst ever Premier League finish to third in the league and 2 cup finals. We've had a bad start to the season and suddenly he doesn't get his results. That's just spoilt, short-term behaviour, which actually is completely and utterly hypocritical to the modern Manchester United fan. You know, last season was one of the best seasons we've had in the last decade. We've had a bad start to this season and people are moaning like we've won the title for the last 10 years. We've been royally shit for 10 years. And we've had a bad start to the season, but it's not the first time we've had bad starts to seasons. It amazes me how some United fans get spoilt about bad results like it's not the norm. We've been bad for 10 years. And Ten Hag had a very good season last year. And there are mitigating circumstances this year. You know, I think Richard Arnold hasn't really been a CEO for 6 months. He's probably known that he's going to get the job for he's losing his job for 6 months. Maybe John Murtaugh's in that situation as well. The injury crisis, I'm not so big on because I think you could see that coming. But the summer transfer window was chaotic, and I think that's been impacted by the sale. I think there's people within that football club that haven't worked as well as they could do because they think they're going to lose their job. So there are mitigating circumstances. I'll acknowledge time and time again that what Ten Hag was building last season compared to this season, it's like a different manager and a different team. I don't know what went on over the summer. Maybe someone should write a book about it. The summer of 2023, because something changed at Man United. There was a momentum from last season. There was a camaraderie. There was a work ethic. There was a process being built. When we ended the season, we were tired. We lost the FA Cup final. We'd ran out of gas. But I felt across the whole season, we'd really took some big strides. And in season 2, you hoped that it would go again. And actually, it's fell off completely. This is like Game of Thrones season 1, if you've ever watched it. Really took me a bit of time to get into it. By the end of it, I was like, we're building something here. It's great. And then season 2 was fantastic. This is like Game of Thrones season 1. Season 2 opens up and it's Barbie. Like, it's a completely different show. I don't get what's going on at United at the moment. And that doesn't get spoken about enough. What went on in the summer of 2023 at Man United? Because last season's been swept under the carpet and forgotten. But it's not been forgotten by me and many others. I remember last season, there was a momentum. We were building something. The football wasn't always great, but we were building something. We were hard to beat. There was a togetherness. Season ends, come back, we're like a bloody different team. And actually, when you look at last season, one of the strong points of last season was the ability to keep clean sheets and defend well and provide a platform to get results. We can't even do that. The fundamental of last season has disappeared completely. So I don't know what happened in the summer of 2023, but I don't think it's going to be all about Ten Hag. I think it's about a wider issue at the football club. Who's going to be a better manager for this club than Ten Hag? I think we forget he took us to 2 finals last season and won one, says Trey. I felt Ten Hag is not helping much in making the players feel great about coming onto the pitch and play for the badge. It's the new generation of players. They can't be managed that strict, but they can, Denny, because they're managed like that at Real Madrid. They're managed like that at Man City. They're managed like that at Liverpool. They're all managed by managers that are authoritative. Man United need to clean house on the players and send them to clubs where they can piss about. Everton is set to receive 12 points deduction by the end of this week due to a breach of financial fair play. Thoughts on this? I've seen it on Twitter, says Football Away Days. I spoke about it yesterday. I mean, some people seem to think it might be not true, in which case it's not true. But if they do get that 12-point gap, I think 12-point deduction, I think it makes it harder for Manchester United next week when we play them. But I think look. That's Everton's problem. It's not Manchester United's problem. There's a lot of talk around at the moment, isn't there? Around clubs. I mean, Chelsea are apparently in trouble as well. We just got to focus on our own problems, not the problems of other clubs, really. The The football was never great without Rashford in form to grind results you get this season, says Dr. Johnny. But again, that's just so, I don't mind people not being fans of Ten Hag, but these sort of comments we're getting in this morning from the people I'm noticing, and they might be the minority, are just, in my opinion, really unfair. To ignore last season, which was a longer period of time than this period that you're talking about, but also to say last season you take Rashford out of the team and you get the same results of this season. Absolute nonsense. Like, were you on a gap year last year where there wasn't any internet? Because I watched every game last year with all of you, and it wasn't, Rashford's goals helped, but you take the Rashford goals out, we still would have got all the clean sheets. Rashford didn't contribute to the clean sheets. He was up the other end of the pitch. Last season was about 17 clean sheets. Last season was about conceding 9 or 10 goals in 19 home games. We built it on a strong defence last year. The problem this year is we haven't got that. So, yeah, we missed the Rashford goals, but I think more importantly, we missed the organisation and teamwork and ethic and camaraderie, or whatever you want to call it, in the defence. Hi Mark, you've absolutely nailed it. We are sick of changing managers, players having more power. Pep won't succeed with this system in Man United. We bought these players expensive, but most of them are not getting any better, says Kenny. And that takes me back to the start of the video where we're talking about this LUKEBA at Leipzig. I don't think we will sign him, but I think he represents the sort of signings that if you bring a Paul Mitchell in, we're probably going to look at. We need to rebuild this football club from the top to the bottom. And to do that, you need a recruitment strategy that is going to work for the next 5 to 10 years. And you need to start bringing in players from the French league and the German league. And it's hard to do it in the Premier League, but the right sort of players with the right sort of personality for the right price and the right wages with the right hunger. It's not impossible. How have Brighton done it? Brighton, for most of my life, have been an unfashionable seaside town with not really much correlation with football. And over the last 5 years, they've become one of the most exciting football teams in Europe, based around a management strategy and structure and amazing recruitment. We can do this. We're Manchester United. We have the reputation, but the way that we recruit needs to change. And we talk about the players can't work under a strict coach. Change the players. Don't change the manager. Change the players. That's what I would do. So it's the most logical thing for Manchester United to do. According to AZ, Paul Mitchell has signed a pre-agreement to join United, says Lee. Well, if I speak on this, I'll be in trouble, which is why I keep saying to you all week, I'm absolutely convinced Paul Mitchell will be the next director of football for Manchester United. But I'm not going to be the one that goes and says something that gets me in trouble. But if I speak, I'll be in trouble. But Paul Mitchell to Manchester United as director of football, I'm absolutely convinced that happens. And I've said that for quite a while now. Last year, we overachieved. This year is our level, says Sean from Ireland. I mean, it's an interesting statement that. I don't think we overachieved last year. I think we did overachieve last year. I think we're underachieving this year. I think our natural position, if you look at the league table at the moment, is where Aston Villa is. I think 4th is where we should be. And I think we're underachieving at the moment. If we had our best team out and we have had a lot of injuries, I think we would nestle in there. And we've got some players that are ridiculously out of form. Did you read anything into the reports that Brighton are saying they have a replacement for De Zerbi if he leaves, says Chris? I don't know whether the De Zerbi, I don't know whether this is a little bit like Pep for me. De Zerbi, if we had to get a manager, would be very interesting. Somebody mentioned Alonso. Somebody, the Sporting Lisbon manager has been mentioned. At this moment in time, there's no point in changing the manager because it won't work. Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, De Zerbi, it won't work. Changing a manager won't work. Ten Hag isn't working because he doesn't have the tools that he had at Ajax. Mourinho didn't work because he didn't have the tools he had at Chelsea and Inter and everywhere else. Changing the manager at the moment, you just put a manager into a situation where he hasn't got anything around him. What United need to do first, before getting rid of a manager or replacing a manager, is build the structure around it. And then if you want to change a manager, good idea. But don't change a manager at the moment. There's no point. De Zerbi at Man United won't work because he won't have all the great things that he's got around him at Brighton working together for one goal. Eric Ten Hag is a great coach. Not many better out there. He just needs to have a good structure above him and players willing to fight and play for the badge. Arteta finished 8th in his second season, says Shane. And also... I've just realised I have to go and get my hair cut. Dealing with star players has been challenging for Ten Hag as international. I disagree. I think people are living in a recency bias where the recent results, they're going over the top and they're completely ignoring last year where there was plenty of high-profile players like Varane and Casemiro and De Gea and Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. Half our team had high-profile players in it, and we got to 2 cup finals and we finished 3rd. We've had a ridiculously bad start to the season. There are numerous reasons for that, but people are using the last 3 months like that's the only time Ten Hag's been managing Man United, and they're sweeping under the last year, pretending it didn't happen. We're 2 points worse off than last season, says Glenny Boy, which is amazing, really, considering we are way worse than last season. Anyway, look, I've got to go. I'm an idiot. Don't forget to check out our Christmas jumper range. Links below. They're flying off the shelves. You can get them worldwide. Also, the Christmas show, December the 11th. Tickets are running out, but you can still get some. I think there's about 80 left. Link in the live chat and in the video description. 7 o'clock is the 8 o'clock show tonight because England are playing at 7:45. So I'll be live at 7 o'clock, and we've got a 2 o'clock show and obviously we'll cover everything for you. And I am playing EAFC. My Man United career mode has started off way better than Eric Ten Hag's this season, so check that out later. And don't forget the charity stream tomorrow all day. The most important thing, I'll remind you about that later. Speak to you all in a bit.